Welcome to Theba Time, where I discuss thoughtful tools, resources, and shared experiences to help and encourage caregivers of loved ones living with dementia. Well, good mid-morning. This is Theba, and I'm here with my mother, Barbara, and we are in our favorite spot in the front of the house, in my bedroom, actually, watching the birds. This is an update. I haven't done a podcast in a while because we've had a lot of post-tornado rebuilding. So I was going to give everyone an update and let you know that in July, I should be back to schedule. We have one last big thing left, and that's the fence. Just getting the fence put back up, but everything else is done. Yes, my mother's alerting me that there are birds on the feeders.
Big blue.
Anyway, just so you know, my mother does not want to be involved in this podcast. And you know what that means? She's going to get involved in the podcast. Anyway, all right, so I did a tornado update. The first, the tornado was March 31st. So I think by the end of April, I did an update with my friend, Carolyn Berry. I didn't get into a lot of details. We just wanted to touch base, and I was still just adjusting to what we had been through. And so I thought what I would do today, since it is too humid to do any outdoor activities, and we still have some indoor stuff to do because we had 2 rooms that we needed to change out. I don't know the proper terms, but basically the ceilings were damaged by water, so we had 2 rooms that we needed to get the drywall replaced, and that was so messy. Blah. But those are done. They're no longer an eyesore, and so I'm still getting one of the rooms just kind of put back together, all the main furniture, but now it's just the odds and ends, pictures. So just we're going to go back March 31st, when Midtown, we call it, here in Little Rock, Arkansas, got hit by an F3 tornado. Now, we do live in Midtown, and our house is positioned in a valley. So the one thing that we're always most worried about is any kind of high wind storms because of the large trees that are in our neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods, but mainly we're just always anxious about big trees coming down on the house. Now, on that day, because I used to work at a TV station for nearly 25 years, I was very much involved in paying attention to when we would have significant weather. And it was scary and fascinating, but I would always go into the weather center. And so there were certain things I learned just listening to our meteorologists through the years. And, of course, Arkansas experienced a lot of issues, damage with some large tornadoes through the years. So it's not unexpected for sure. But I would say being in Little Rock, the city of Little Rock, yes, we've been hit, but the bottom line is my house, I never felt like we were in danger, like Tornado Alley type of danger. Though we did have a couple of tornadoes that came close. So I was always aware, hypersensitive to storms, especially rolling up on storms after the fact in surrounding areas, Clinton, Arkansas being one of the areas that was very eye-opening to me. So going back to March 31st, I woke up anxious about the storms. I'm sure I heard some stuff the night before, certain terms that made me realize that particular day, which was a Friday, would be turbulent. Anyway, so I woke up paying attention. Let's just put it that way. And so we did have a Friday game day planned with our good friends, the Taters, and I was not really wanting to do it because I knew that whatever severe storms were happening were going to happen during the day. They would just kind of pop up, and I knew that the sun was out, and that was a bad ingredient for these type of storms. So I was anxious. So I sent several texts to my friend Linda and just said, hey, if you guys are worried, I know these storms are supposed to happen mid-afternoon. We can cancel game day. But they were for it, and they had to be gone from the house about 2 o'clock because they had to go pick up their grandbabies from school. Nevertheless, they came, and we had lunch and started playing a domino game. And because I was hypersensitive, I had my laptop going with live coverage from the TV station I used to work, and kept it on, actually, through the game. And so around 2 o'clock, they said, yeah, we should probably go. And we enjoy them a lot, but I was kind of glad that they had to go because I knew that they needed to get their grandbabies and get off the road. And I needed to pay attention. So I already had our bicycle helmets, our tennis shoes ready. So they hit the road, and we could pay attention. So I came in, Mom and I came into my bedroom where we spend most of the day, and I put on the TV, and it was obvious that they were cutting in big time now to live coverage on the TV. So I was just paying attention. It was still really difficult for me to understand exactly what I was hearing and seeing. I thought a major storm was, about 40 minutes away in the Hot Springs area. But then another one popped up, and it was coming closer to Little Rock. So at that point, the tornado alarm started going off, and I was like, And so I had Mom go into the bathroom that we normally go into when there's severe weather, and we had our helmets on, and I just told her to sit in there. And I came back into my bedroom to pay attention to the coverage because I did have it on my laptop, but there's just a slight delay. Had the laptop in the bathroom. Was sitting on the edge of my bed and trying to get an idea of what I was seeing. They were pointing to the storm, the actual tornado on the TV. I could see where it was, sort of, kind of, but I could tell that the meteorologist was nervous, only because I've known him through the years, so I could tell he was anxious about what he was seeing. And then they mentioned a street not far from us, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa. Looked out my window, and I guess at the same time I heard the tornado and then saw what I can only conclude is debris at that point, and ran into the bathroom, and boom, power was out, and this horrendous sound, the tornado blowing through, and the trees coming down on the roof. It was just the most unsettling scene and situation I'd ever been in, and I just held my mama and we prayed. We just said, Jesus, we love you. I'm not sure that my mom understood that that was a tornado. It doesn't matter. I was shaking. She was shaking, and we were nervous because it was a terrible sound, especially when the neighbors' trees were hitting the house. And then it was over. I think it took like 12 seconds, somebody said, and I didn't want any more seconds beyond that because I thought if you could die from sound, the fear of sound, that I was surely about to die. What I thought I heard, even though I had no idea because I couldn't see anything, is I thought the roof came off. all the trees that were hitting the house. There were 3 main trees from the neighbors that hit my mom's side of the house, my mom's bedroom side of the house, and that bathroom that we were in was not far from that. It was bam, bam, bam. Of course, you had the sound of the tornado, and you had all the debris kicking around your house. And little did I know, no glass was broken, but water was coming in the house on the window sills. It was just so bizarre. Things were falling on the deck, so that was added sound. And then 2 trees. Oh, we had our biggest cat jump up on the bed, and when she jumps up, it's like a tornado. So she's settling in. There you go, Whiskers. It's Miss Whiskers. She's the big one. Anyway, so we had 2 trees that came from the other neighbors, and they crashed into the fence and hit the backyard. So just a lot happened. Trees all over the neighborhood were going down. So it ended. The alarm was still going. The tornado siren, not alarm, was still going. So I wanted to open the door, but I didn't want to open the door to the bathroom because, again, I thought the roof had come off. And I was afraid of what I would see. Nevertheless, shaking like a leaf, told Mom to stay put, and I was going to go see what happened. I could tell there was some differences. The roof was there in that part of the house, but my mom's room was a little darker, and that is because the trees had covered her big main window. And then the eave of the house, which is about 5 feet in length, was hanging in front of her window on the side too. So I could tell that the room was just different. And when I looked in there and saw, it was obvious that there was something big in front of her big window. I could see pressing up against the windows, but not broken, were leaves and branches. Again, I shuffled down the hall just to, again, I couldn't even feel my legs. It was just so weird. Shuffled down the hall, looked out the window in my bedroom, which I was in moments before, when I peeked out and saw weird stuff happening outside the window, and noticed large trees in front of my window. So that freaked me out. Moved through the rest of the house a little bit, looked out to the den to see that there were trees in our backyard as well that had come down, not our trees, but our neighbors. And then moved out to the front yard to see the debris. And I went only as far as the driveway, staying underneath, because the tornado alarms were still going off, and I didn't know if we had more storms coming. But at that moment, when it dawned on me what had just happened, that truly it was the tornado, a tornado, not just a strong wind event, I screamed. I couldn't scream inside because I didn't want to scare my mom. But I went outside and I screamed, and yes, I cussed out that tornado. And I could see the damage it had done across the street to my neighbors, and it was just gut-wrenching to see that. And so then I came back in to check on Mom and tell Mom to please stay put. I started putting a call out. They said that the tower was hit for phone service, so I know people were trying to call me and send texts, but everything was pinging on everywhere else. So, but I was happy to get a call through to a friend of mine who used to work at the TV station, because I could see that she was trying to reach out to me. Most everyone knew as they were watching TV, because they had mentioned our neighborhood being hit, that's why all of the calls were coming in. But she checked, and I said, "Are we still in danger? I don't know anything, and I don't know what to do." And she said, no storms at that time. So I took a big deep breath, came back in, told my mom I was going to go outside again and for her to just stay put, don't come outside. And then I just had to come apart because I went down the driveway and I looked up at our house and I could see that there were trees on top of it and there was significant damage, not catastrophic, but significant damage. And what I mean by not catastrophic is so far I realized that there were no tree branches or trees that had penetrated our ceiling. It was all attic damage at that point, roof damage. But I went down the drive just as far as I felt comfortable and just cried, shaking like a leaf still, hyperventilating. Came back in, found my mom standing in the den. And now, see, my mother has always been a calm person. She's in the moment. She doesn't overreact. I'm the complete opposite. So she looked at me and she said, "You need to calm down. You need to take a deep breath." And I was like, "You're right, Mama. I'm sorry. I get so anxious about storms." I could tell that she knew something significant had happened. Obviously, there's trees all around. She's trying to understand what happened in the yard. But we didn't talk about tornado. So my brother called. I called him. He called. He got me to stop hyperventilating and take a deep breath and then to do some practical things. Get a bucket because there was cracks in my ceiling in my bedroom and I didn't know if more storms were coming and rain. So he said, get a bucket, do some things that you can focus on, etc. And I was like, "You're right. Okay, that'll be helpful. That'll distract me." And then eventually I wandered outside again when it was not raining and it was calmer. And of course, that's when everyone's just wandering around. Now, a lot of people were picking up their children from school in this neighborhood and said they couldn't get down here by car. It wasn't until later that I realized the significant damage around us. The neighborhood directly in front of our house, past our this first street, and then beside us, had no idea. I just was kind of a walking zombie myself, but people were wandering around and checking on neighbors, and I thought, well, I'm going to get that bucket, I'll get some things, I'll get my little electric generator out. I wanted to get the refrigerator pulled out I was just thinking, well, we're going to be out of power for a long time and try to save what we can in the fridge. So these are things I could do, except I did need help getting the refrigerator pulled away. It was just a monster. A couple neighbors dropped by, check on gas. I didn't, that's not something I was thinking about, but our gas line was not damaged. Anyway, so if you could just picture, because you've had that experience or just seen it on TV, it's just chaos, a calm type of chaos afterwards, people getting immediately their chainsaws going. But first people had to get down here. So my neighbors who were picking up kids and stuff, they had to park their car blocks away and then walk. So that was just that. So that happened at 2:30, the tornado. I started focusing on things that I could do. I certainly couldn't get a chainsaw. I couldn't leave Mom. I needed to stay close. And I also just needed to get calm as she was just trying to figure out what just happened. And I knew we'd be out of power for a while, so I was just kind of doing things that I would do during an ice storm, when you lose power. And someone on the driveway, we were all standing around, said something about calling their agent, insurance agent. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's something I can do. So I did that just because I needed to be productive and didn't know whether I would reach him, but I just left a message and said, "Hi, this is Theba, I'm your client, and we just got hit by the tornado. And I just wanted you to know that so you can start a claim." And he called me back within an hour and then had me, again, a lot of things I just did because I felt like the movement of God was instructing me which I'm so grateful for. His mercy was just there. And this man said, call this man. I had no idea who this man was, but my agent said to call him, and he was nearby at another house that had gotten damaged. And so he had me call him. I called and didn't expect to see him that night. But I just told him our house was hit. There's a big tree, a couple of trees on the roof, but one in particular that just was making me nervous. He said he'll do what he can to get here. I kind of forgot about him as I was, walking around talking to neighbors. And there were tree service people quickly in the neighborhood. And another neighbor of mine said, Theba, if you want that big tree off your roof, talk to this guy. He's licensed, he's legit. And another neighbor had just used him to get their tree off the roof. And all this is happening within hours of the tornado hitting. So he came over and he said he would do it in the morning. And I just said, can you just remove that one big tree off the roof? I didn't care how much it cost. It didn't matter at that point. I didn't know structurally if Mom and I were still safe. I had people saying you probably need to leave. But that was like if we were structurally in danger, yes, we would have left. But as most of you know, when it comes to an Alzheimer's patient, their home is their home. Whether the power's out or there's a tree on the roof, that's where they're safe, that's where they're calm. So it would have been an option, obviously, if we were in danger, but I knew the situation enough to know that we didn't have anything coming through the ceilings. The big tree on the roof was making me nervous, but it looked like this guy was able to get it, was able to do it that night. And so we could get tarps over the openings in the attic. So that's what I was focused on. Mom and I have dealt with storms and power outages. So that was not going to spook her. It wasn't going to spook me. I have all my little safety lights and little solar generators that I use for those. Now, I knew we'd be out for a lot longer than a couple of nights, so that was not an issue. I knew that we would be bunking in her room with the cats, and she loves that anyway. So once the guy that the agent told me to call, his name is Jason. I didn't know what his role was in this world. I'm sure the agent said something on the phone about him, what he did, but I didn't listen. I was just kind of on autopilot. Well, Holy Spirit pilot at that point. I knew the Holy Spirit was guiding me and guiding those around me. So I just kind of did what I was told. So the man that showed up, his name is Jason. He was with a construction rebuilding company. And he walked here. He and his partner came. They got on the roof. They checked the tarp that the tree people put down because I had a tarp. And then he did some more stuff to secure that tarp and said that we were structurally safe. So that was all by 8 o'clock. Got the big tree off. Jason came. I felt confident we could stay the night. And we were going to be safe from any kind of water damage if it stormed again, etc. So we crawled in bed, and I did not sleep a wink, obviously. I thought about that tornado all night, but my mother went out like a baby. The cats were excited. They all curled up with us. I woke up the next morning. If I even slept, can't remember really. I'm sure I dozed off here and there, but I knew when I saw sunlight that I needed to get up and do an assessment. I could already hear trucks in the neighborhood, chainsaws going off. So the one thing that I did do is, because I knew my mother was not going to remember the tornado, and what happened. So I just said, "Hey, Mom, I need to remind you of something." She was like, "Okay, we don't have power." "Oh, okay. We had a storm yesterday, and we lost power. It was a bad storm." "Oh, okay. But I need to let you know, when you wake up and look out the windows, there's a lot of damage." "You mean that happened while we were asleep? I didn't wake up at all." I was like, "Well, it didn't happen while we were asleep. It happened at 2:30 in the morning." "Well, all right. Okay." So she gets up and, of course, looks out windows and is just blown away. And, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" Again, she was convinced this happened while we were asleep because I said, "Mama, we got in the bathroom and this happened while we were hiding in the bathroom." And she could not comprehend that. That did not surprise me, obviously. But I just knew that throughout the day I was going to have to go over the situation again and again, because she was just baffled and shocked, stunned every time she looked out the window, saw the damage. And so that is the next day. And so we just continued to do what we could. And I knew I was being taken care of by Jason with Mystical Construction, and he was checking on us the next day and the next day. And so those details are amazing and comforting, just how God had provided people, the timing of everything for us. And we just focused at that point on, first I just focused on trusting Jason. I don't even know that was an issue of me trusting him. I just knew I could trust him. I just know that God gave me that revelation, and so I just listened to him, and we just went about dealing with the adjuster, who ended up coming out probably 5 days later, because obviously he was swamped, but still he came out and did his assessment. It was just all the things that happened afterwards, though I was eager about getting things done, were just a blessing, one blessing after another. So I never questioned who God had called up in my life to be the adjuster, the contractor, etc. And so my whole goal at that point, knowing that Jason was going to handle the big ticket items of things I didn't understand, hiring a company to frame the new gables, the attic area, the new roof, blah, blah, blah. I didn't ever understand how to read any kind of insurance estimate, but I got that back, and we just moved forward. And again, my goal was to create as much comfort and stability and for Mom and me. She could tell things were weird and bad and confusing, but every time that we would have someone show up at the house to do work, it was exciting for her. And I think the most important thing was that everything that she taught me, that I witnessed from her growing up, her parents, the way she took care of this house when I was younger, the way she took care of her parents, I was going to have to move forward with that knowledge and that foundation that she left for me to do. I was going to have to take care of everything. And so what gave me joy and what gave me comfort is that she just didn't question anything. Of course, she was always curious, like, what are they doing? You know, it was loud, and what's going on today? So every day we just kind of had to revisit, first talk about the fact that a tornado had come through, that we weren't the only neighborhood that was hit, that there were other areas that were just devastated. And that made her sad, and we could see stuff from our home that was happening in the other neighborhood because so many trees went down. So she had an idea. And all she had to do was look off the porch and see what happened to the neighbor's house across the street. There were two neighbors that they had to move out. The damage was so severe. So she knew. She was, remember, just because they have Alzheimer doesn't mean they don't have emotional intelligence. She was very aware that something significant had happened. She did not feel obligated nor responsible for taking care of what had happened, but was relying on me to do so. And just following my lead. And I would always give her some little project to do, since she's obsessed with picking up sticks and stuff. There were plenty of those. So she spent most of her time wandering around. We had to be careful. We had a lot of debris, especially after they did the roof, lots of nails. So the backyard was the biggest mess once we got a lot of those trees taken to the curb. We could go through and secure some stuff. We had a lot of damage to some rock walls and retaining walls. And, of course, our power pole snapped in half and ended up in our backyard. So all those lines were down. So there was danger, and I had to make sure I paid attention to her as well to make sure she stayed safe in that regard. But we just kept plowing along, and every morning we tried to, again, lots of noise, lots of trucks. So besides watching, looking out the window and just seeing what was going on, that was our TV, because we were, for the next 40 days, without any kind of cable, internet. We did get power in 9 days because we had to have a temporary construction pole set up. So we did get power, but as far as anything else, we didn't have any TV, and after a while, we just didn't care. We didn't want that noise. I mean, we had a lot of noise going on, and of course, in the surrounding neighborhoods, it was constant trucks and nails and pounding, so it was a lot to keep us busy, physically busy, but also emotionally just kind of, it was our TV, basically, out front. But we got up in the mornings and did our coffee and opened the window up and had our prayer time and had a lot more opportunity to pray and just talk because we didn't have the interference of TV being on. So a lot had changed, and but a lot of things stayed the same, so that was helpful. And Mom, in my opinion, did a remarkable. She's been remarkable through the whole thing. And I think what has given me such joy and peace is her trust in me to just take care of stuff. And again, she also knows I'm trusting in God's provisions to help me understand what to do, and to trust the people that He places in my life to accomplish things I don't understand. Contractors, framers, roofers, this and that, electricians. So that is the update and more details. The update officially is here. Let's see, it is June 5th. All we have left is the fence, to get the fence up, and through this process, because I've needed to stay busy. It's been a therapy for me. I've painted the entire house and outside, and worked with a friend of mine to replace some stuff that I've wanted. So I've been walking around looking at stuff that was not damaged by the tornado and thinking, I put that off, that rotten wood in the deck. Let's get that replaced. Nothing out of this, nothing crazy, nothing expensive, no big remodels, but just took care of some stuff that have needed to be. And we power washed the fence, the entire fence that was not damaged. Put some Thompson seal on it, just taking care of stuff. Planted some new trees for Mom. We lost her beautiful cherry blossom in the backyard, and we lost another big, beautiful oak tree type tree. I don't know my trees, but in the front yard, that was the big tree we lost. So I planted her a ginkgo, I think it's called, or dinko. I think it's ginkgo. And we got let's see, what is that? A magnolia tree. So I just wanted to plant some life where some life had been knocked down. And then just worked with my yard guy to try to savor what we could of the front lawn. Because, of course, it took some big divots out of that because of the trees that fell in it. But also, of course, the piles upon piles of tree debris that they put on the yard that was there for about a month until the city was able to come and get it. So little things like that. And, of course, it weeks for me to walk around and pick up debris, shingles from other people's houses, who knows how far away, but just odd things, too, that you would find in the yard. And one of the reasons that I painted the whole house is because it was just filthy, and it also had a lot of little divots in it from the debris that just swirled around and beat it up. So it needed to be power washed, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and do a little facelift, a little paint job, and make it feel fresh and look fresh. So that's it. We're doing great. Mom's doing incredible. And we're absolutely more grateful than we've ever been in our entire lives for what we went through. I know that's weird. The trial that we went through, and then the recovery through that trial, and the spiritual growth that it instilled. Because you can't go through a trial like that and not grow. But anyway, we love Jesus, and we love each other, and we love our cats, and we love our home. And I hope that this podcast has just been an encouragement. I hope to get back to doing 2 a month. I'm not sure, but I am a little bit behind. But just wanted to touch base and just encourage you all. If you are listening to this podcast, Don't You Remember podcast for the first time, and you're seeing cognitive memory issues with your loved one, don't ignore it. Don't overreact to it. That's what I did. And so, but just begin the process of reaching out to your local Alzheimer's association, any other organization that is local that is there to support caregivers. Go ahead and reach out, begin the process of understanding the disease, also what groups and classes there are. That's what I did in the beginning, so I wouldn't feel alone, so I could have a better understanding of what others were learning, what they were going through, tips, tools, everything. And so that's what this podcast is about. It's just a resource of encouragement to you. Please get a good group of people around you too. That's crucial for you. Anyway, we love you. Mom has been awfully quiet. That's very surprising. Anyway, peace out to everyone.